Welcome, my dear Alchemicjoker family. A powerful message awaits us today. Dive in and God bless.
Hey, look at you. Yeah, everybody in here, breathe for a second. Because this one ain't light, and it ain't polite, and it definitely isn't meant to tuck you in. This is for the people who feel off in the world, like the room keeps going quiet when they walk in, like the air changes just a little. Like you've been playing a role you never auditioned for. You have zero clue who you are in the spirit realm. None. And that's not an insult. That's the setup. You wake up every day thinking this version of you is the whole story. Job, phone, problems, bills, expectations, labels they slapped on you early and never bothered to remove. You scroll, you laugh, you survive, you adapt. You tell yourself this is normal. Everybody's tired, everybody's stressed, everybody's confused. But deep down, deep way down, you've always known something doesn't add up. Because you don't just feel lost, you feel out of place. Like you're a high-powered machine dropped into beginner mode. Like your memory got wiped on purpose. Like your soul walked into this life with a blindfold on, and instructions were conveniently missing. And you keep asking yourself why certain things hit you harder than they should. Why injustice makes your chest burn. Why you can smell fake from a mile away. Why solitude feels safer than crowds. Why you've always felt watched, measured, studied, even when nobody's around. You think that's anxiety. They think that's awareness. See, you don't know who you are in the spirit realm, but they do. And by they, I don't mean some cartoon villains in robes. I mean systems, hierarchies, structures, energies, people who read patterns instead of resumes, people who study lineage, frequency, reaction, pressure, tolerance, people who notice who doesn't break the way they're supposed to. You ever notice how much resistance showed up in your life early? Like the hits came fast, too fast. Family chaos, sudden losses, betrayals that felt scripted, doors closing for no logical reason. You told yourself you were unlucky. Nah. Pressure reveals quality. Nobody wastes this much opposition on someone average. Average people glide. You got dragged, and still, you're here. Still thinking, still questioning, still standing in rooms you weren't expected to survive entering. Still not fully controlled, even after everything they threw at you to dull the edge. That's the part you don't know. That's the part you forgot. But somebody noticed, because when you returned, when you came back into this world as this version of you, you didn't come empty. You came with residue, instincts, reflexes, a presence you can't explain and other people can't ignore. You ever sit somewhere quietly and feel somebody across the room clock you for no reason? That's not paranoia. That's recognition without context. Your spirit knows how to stand, even when your mind is unsure. You've always felt older than your age, right? Like you're watching people repeat things you've already outgrown. Like trends don't quite hypnotize you. Like you can't fully commit to the nonsense. No matter how hard you try to blend in. You try being normal, but your soul keeps side-eyeing the whole operation. Because you didn't return to forget forever. You returned under constraint. And that's the part that messes with people. You don't wake up knowing the truth. You wake up sensing it. In flashes, in discomfort, in that low hum behind your thoughts that says, this isn't all there is. In moments where your patience runs out for the things everyone else tolerates easily. In that urge to burn your old self down and rebuild without asking permission. They know who you are because they've seen this pattern before. The late bloomers with dangerous depth. The ones who look calm until they're not. The ones whose awakenings don't come as peace. They come as disruption. They know people like you don't move fast. But when you move, structures wobble. That's why confusion surrounds you. Fog is strategic. You think it's accidental you've had to piece yourself together with no manual. That nobody ever really explained you to yourself. That guidance only came half clear. Because clarity triggers remembrance, and remembrance changes posture, and posture changes power dynamics. And some balances are very comfortable the way they are. So you're given distractions instead. Trauma loops, self-doubt, overthinking, labels that lower expectations, voices that tell you to calm down, be realistic, stay in your lane. Meanwhile, your spirit keeps pacing like a caged animal, checking the bars, waiting for the click it recognizes. And yeah, you don't know who you are in the spirit realm, but you feel the weight of it. You feel it when you refuse to bow internally, even when you comply externally. When you play the game just enough to survive, but never enough to surrender. When you laugh with people who don't know you, knowing if you ever showed them the real depth, it would scare them. When you sense timelines branching, and you realize small decisions feel heavier for you than for others, that's because your return wasn't casual. Some people reincarnate to experience, others return to intervene. And right now, you're walking around with the amnesia part of the package, thinking the confusion is the problem, not realizing it's the cover. The delay isn't punishment. It's training under pressure. It's seasoning. It's learning restraint before remembering capacity. You don't need to rush revelation. You're already being read correctly by the ones who matter in this story. They've been watching how you handle disappointment, how you treat power when you don't have it yet, how you talk to yourself when nobody's clapping, how you respond when the world keeps testing a strength you didn't consciously sign up to demonstrate. And the funny part, the real joke. They're more certain about you than you are about yourself. Because while you're asking, who am I really? They're asking, when does this one remember? Every moment you resist becoming smaller. Every time you choose awareness over numbness. Every time you walk away instead of selling your soul for comfort. Every time you sit with the discomfort instead of running from it. You're pulling threads from something much older than this lifetime. And no, this speech isn't here to tell you who you are. That would cheapen the process. This is just the mirror held long enough for you to notice you've never actually been lost. Just temporarily unfamiliar with your own reflection. You don't need permission to feel different anymore. You don't need validation to trust the signal. You don't need to explain your depth to shallow systems. You just need to keep listening to that quiet, relentless knowing that refuses to shut up inside you. Because the part of you that returned remembers more than you think. And the part of you that's watching this right now is already closer than yesterday. And somewhere, something that's been tracking your frequency just adjusted its expectations again. Because you're already noticing things shifting. Yeah, like subtle stuff at first. Little cracks in the routine. The old distractions don't hit the same. The conversations sound hollow quicker than they used to. You're listening to people talk, and it's like you can hear the script behind the words. Like you already know where it's going before they finish the sentence. And that's when it starts getting uncomfortable because you realize you're not bored. You're ahead. You've been gaslit your whole life into thinking that feeling meant arrogance, or isolation, or immaturity. Nah. That's discernment kicking in without the labels attached yet. That's your spirit stretching inside a body that was trained to shrink. You ever feel that tension in your chest when you try to explain yourself and then stop mid-sentence because you know they won't get it anyway? That's not social anxiety. That's strategic silence developing on its own. You walk through this world like you're undercover in your own skin. And the wild part is, you think you're the one being tested. But half the time, you're the test. People show you who they are around you without meaning to. They overreact. They project. They compete with you silently. They either dump their trauma on you or treat you like a threat they can't fully name. You're calm. You're observant. You're not even trying to do anything. And yet the room rearranges itself around your presence. That doesn't happen by accident. You've noticed how authority figures clock you sideways sometimes. Bosses, elders, people with positions. They can't put their finger on it, but something in them knows you're not meant to stay beneath anything permanently. You don't rebel loud. You don't crash systems dramatically. You outlast them. And that's way more dangerous. You didn't return loud. You returned patient. That's why life keeps forcing you to sit with yourself. Long pauses, delays, dead time that feels like punishment until you realize it sharpened your perception. You had to learn how to hear your own thoughts without noise first. You had to survive loneliness without turning bitter. You had to get familiar with emptiness so you wouldn't panic when space opened up later. Most people collapse when nothing's happening. You learned how to breathe there. And yeah, nobody told you this part, but they didn't forget you either. You're not off record. Your reactions are logged. Your resilience is noted. Every cycle you didn't break in, every compromise you refused even when your back was against the wall, every time you chose the harder internal route instead of the easier external one, it stacked quietly. You think your life looks random. From above, it reads intentional. That feeling you get right before something big changes. When sleep gets weird, appetite shifts, memories resurface out of nowhere. That's not coincidence. That's internal clearance happening. Old permissions expiring. Old versions timing out. You don't need to understand it intellectually, yet your body already clocked the memo. And the craziest thing, you're still trying to downplay yourself. You still tell yourself you're probably overthinking. You still assume other people have it figured out more than you do. You still act like your depth is a flaw you need to soften so you don't make anyone uncomfortable. But pay attention. Who's actually uncomfortable? It's never the grounded ones. It's the performative ones. The people holding their identity together with noise and validation and routines. They're scared to question. Your silence rattles them. Your patience confuses them. Your refusal to rush makes them nervous because they know people like you don't move unless there's a reason. And when there is a reason, there's no drama about it. You're not here to react. You're here to reposition. That's why pressure keeps finding you even when you mind your business. That's why challenges sneak up instead of announcing themselves. That's why comfort always seems temporary, like something nudging you to stay sharp, stay awake, stay aware. You weren't sent back to sleepwalk through routines that crumble the moment something real happens. And you feel it most late at night, don't you? When the noise drops and you're alone with your thoughts. That quiet confidence mixed with restlessness. That itch to become something undefined, yet unmistakable. That sense that you're standing at the edge of remembering without fully crossing over yet. You're closer than you've ever been. Not because you learned something new, because you stopped betraying what you already knew. You stopped forcing yourself into boxes that never fit. You stopped apologizing internally for wanting more depth, more truth, more alignment. You started honoring the weight you carry without turning it into ego. And somewhere in the layers beyond this version of reality, something that's been watching your restraint, your timing, your refusal to fold, just marked another quiet check beside your name. Because pressure doesn't get wasted on people who aren't built to carry anything meaningful. And you've been carrying weight you never verbally agreed to hold since early on. Way before you had the language to name it. You learned responsibility sideways, learned awareness through discomfort, learned how to read energy before you learned how to ask for help. That's why you catch vibes quicker than explanations, why you sense when things are off before facts line up, why your intuition hits first and logic shows up late trying to catch breath. You've been trained in silence, and it shows in the way you pause before reacting, like you're checking an internal database nobody else can access. You're not indecisive. You're consulting memory that doesn't come with timestamps. You've always trusted your gut more than promises, more than titles, more than hype. You've watched people peak early and fade loud, while you kept moving quiet and steady, stacking something nobody else saw coming. You don't realize how obvious you are to certain eyes. That's why random mentorship shows up and disappears. Why authority sometimes leans closer when you speak, even when your words are simple. Why some people feel suddenly seen around you, and others feel exposed. You're not trying to reveal anything. You're just standing there unmasked, and that alone makes masks nervous. Think about how often you've been underestimated, then strangely monitored afterward. You've had moments where things should have fallen apart, but didn't. Where timing bent just enough to keep you upright. Where doors closed hard, but another angle appeared without fanfare. You called it luck? You called it coincidence? You called it having good instincts. What you didn't call it was protection, because claiming that felt arrogant, felt unrealistic, felt like tempting something fragile. But notice the pattern. Something always steps in after you refuse to abandon yourself. That's not rescue. That's alignment responding. That's clearance clearing. That's you passing invisible thresholds by staying internally consistent while everything external tried to rewrite you. You don't get rewarded for being perfect. You get noticed for being uncorrupted under pressure, for not morphing into what the environment demanded, just to survive another day easier. And yeah, you've been tired. Bone tired. The kind of tired sleep doesn't fix. The kind that comes from carrying unspoken responsibility, from knowing more than you can articulate, from postponing your own expansion because others around you aren't ready to adjust. You shrink your truth mid-sentence more often than you admit, trying not to disturb the balance, trying not to trigger insecurity, trying not to ignite reactions you don't feel like managing. But every time you do that, something inside you pushes back harder. That push isn't rebellion, it's remembrance trying to surface. It's your deeper self checking whether you're still paying attention. You didn't come back to get comfortable being small. You came back to learn how to hold magnitude without becoming loud, without becoming reckless, without becoming what this world expects power to look like. You're different in a way that doesn't announce itself. That's why life keeps circling you back to the same lessons with new faces, new settings, new stakes. It's not stuckness, it's refinement. Each cycle filters out another layer of false identification, another borrowed belief, another version of yourself that was built for survival instead of truth. And you can feel the shift happening internally, your patience thinning for things that don't respect your depth, your thresholds recalibrating, your tolerance for nonsense evaporating quietly. You're not angry, you're done rehearsing. You don't need a dramatic awakening moment. You're already awake enough to stop negotiating with what drains you. Already sharp enough to notice when something is misaligned without needing proof. Already grounded enough to let go without closing your heart to the world. That's why your next phase won't look loud from the outside. It'll look precise, intentional, unavoidable in hindsight. People will say they always knew you had something in you, forgetting how often they advised you to play it safe, tone it down, be realistic, wait your turn. Turns out you were waiting on memory, not permission, and every day you stay honest with yourself, every moment you trust that quiet internal signal over external noise, every time you refuse to trade depth for approval. Something ancient within you strengthens posture just a bit more, recalibrates stance just a bit further, sharpens focus, like it recognizes the environment shifting closer to something it remembers all too well. Because once posture changes internally, the world starts responding sideways, not directly, not politely, but in these subtle reroutes that only you notice. People start revealing intentions quicker. Opportunities hover without landing right away. Delays begin feeling different. Not heavy, not hopeless, just calibrated. Like something is sizing you up instead of stalling you out. You felt that, yeah. That moment where things slow down right before they accelerate. Where your instincts start whispering louder than outside advice, where formerly safe choices suddenly feel cramped, like clothes you've outgrown but kept wearing out of habit. You try to rationalize it, tell yourself you're being dramatic, telling yourself everybody feels this way at some point. But deep down, you know this isn't a phase. This is a shift in operating system. You're not searching anymore the same way. You're observing, watching patterns repeat across different people, catching the same behaviors in different bodies, noticing how quickly power exposes character, how fear decorates itself as logic, how some people cling to certainty because curiosity would dismantle them. You don't judge it, you just clock it. And that ability to clock without reacting. That's another thing that didn't come from this lifetime. You notice how your silence lands heavier lately. How when you don't explain yourself, things still rearrange. How walking away calmly seems to disturb some people more than confrontation ever would. You're not emotionally unavailable. You're selectively present. And that selection process is tightening whether you consciously try or not. That's because you're remembering boundaries you didn't learn here. You've always had a weird relationship with authority, right? Not defiant, not obedient, just unimpressed when it isn't earned. Titles never fully hypnotized you. Status doesn't override integrity in your head. You listen, you observe, you comply when it aligns. But something in you refuses to bow internally just because someone expects it. That's not ego. That's something deeper resisting overright. That's why manipulation never sticks to you long. You see through it eventually. Even when you fall for it briefly, something snaps you back to center. You replay conversations later and catch what was really being said. You scroll less. You withdraw more. You start protecting your attention like it's expensive. because you know it is. You know where attention goes, energy follows, and your energy doesn't regenerate like casual currency. You've been conserving without being taught how. And yeah, it's been lonely. Way lonelier than you admit. Being aware while pretending not to be is exhausting. Carrying insight without context feels isolating.
Thank you for watching, family. We do hope this message was helpful and life-changing. Don't forget to join the Alchemicjoker community where we transform pain into power. Stick around for more powerful messages. We love you.